Hi, everyone. I can't follow that, but I'm Erica Mallon. I'm the executive director of the Aspen Institute Arts Program, and we are thrilled to have Rita Moreno in conversation with Michael Eisner. As many of you know, Michael Eisner is an Aspen Institute trustee. He's chair of the Arts Committee and a titan in his own right, particularly in Hollywood, so you're getting an amazing conversation today. And of course, Rita Moreno, she is part of our flagship program, Artist in Residence. Yes, As many of you may or may not know, Rita is one of a handful of people called EGOT, which is a winner of a Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, and Tony. And I think we have to add, PGOT, because recently she was given a Lifetime Achievement Award, a Peabody. So you're a PGOT now, right, Rita?
Well, it's a CAPEGOT because it's Kennedy Center Awards.
Oh my gosh, so more awards. CAPEGOT.
But who's counting?
Who's counting? Oh my gosh. All right, so there's a major fan club down here. Have a wonderful conversation. We are so thrilled to have you here, Rita. Michael is an incredible person and supporter, so go at it.
Okay, I'm going to pour my green juice here. This is chlorophyll water.
What is in that?
Chlorophyll water, and the hotel tells me that it somehow helps with the altitude thing. So I've been peeing green.
Why is it green?
Chlorophyll. You didn't hear me. You're not listening.
I don't
You're
know.
an interviewer. You're supposed to listen to me. This is starting off very bad.
So, Rita, Erica mentioned the PGOT, which you corrected to include other awards. The number of awards that you have received is awesome. I think only Mike Nichols and Barbra Streisand are equal to you.
Really?
Those are the only two that have ever received the four big ones, and the Kennedy Center, and the Peabody. So I thought it's kind of impossible to dwell on that because they're so awesome, but I thought we would do a conversation that is in two parts. The first part is pre-West Side Story and the Oscar, and the second part is post-West Side Story.
Good idea.
Excuse me?
Good idea.
It seems like they're so I'd like to start off, and I should say, when I read a biography, because when somebody is worthy of a biography, you really know a lot about their career once they become famous. Mm-hmm. So when I read a biography, I am obsessed with the first 4 chapters, because I'm always interested in how a person, through their education, their background, their family, their diversity, how they got to the point of even becoming somebody that I would be interested in. So I'd kind of like to hear, even though you left at 4, Puerto Rico, what remembrances do you have of Puerto Rico, say, versus the Bronx, where you came at 5? Light versus...
It's called the Bronx.
The Bronx.
The Bronx, yes.
I thought you objected to being depicted through an entire career as a Latino.
No, it depends on what kind of Latino, first of all. But I have very vivid memories of my childhood, my very young childhood in Puerto Rico. They're lovely, paradisical. They were, I remember nothing but joy and happiness and a lot of laughter. And it's where I learned very early in life that I really wanted to be in this profession. I didn't know it was called anything. But it started with Grandpa, my abuelito, saying dance for me and putting on records. And I'd shake my little booty and make him very happy. And in making him happy, in making him laugh and clapping his hands in time to the music, I thought, this is nice. I like this kind of attention.
You were precocious.
I don't know if I was precocious, but I sure love the attention.
And your brother was
changed.
older or younger, your brother?
I had a brother who's younger. He was a little baby boy at the time.
So he wasn't jealous of his theatrical sister.
No. Francisco was his name. And I was Rosa Dolores Alberio. And one of my happiest memories, really, I have two that are really very salient. One was walking through the rainforest with my mother, who used to show me off because for some reason, I've never understood this, I knew the names of of many, many, many plants, and particularly herbs and such. So she used to, show me off to friends and say, Rosinita. Rosinita was her nickname for me. She said, tell them what that is. And I would. That was always fun. And then the other thing I remember, well, three things very, very clearly. And the other one was going to the creek, the local creek, to wash the clothes, where the women literally beat the clothes on the stones.
Where in Puerto Rico?
This was in Humacao. Humacao, which is near the rainforest. Humacao begins with an H, which is silent in Spanish.
And what motivated you and your mother to leave this paradise?
It didn't motivate me. It was my mother who thought that there was a better life waiting for us. She had to deal with a philandering husband, which was not unusual then, and she did something extraordinary. She left me and my brother with my grandparents and took a ship to New York City to find a job, make enough money, and go back to Puerto Rico and pick one of us up first, then the other. That was the plan.
She was like 20 years old at this point.
Oh, yeah, she was very young. She had me when she was 17.
So this story of immigration continues on and on, even to this day, that we are seeing people looking for a better life.
Like, my God, it's like living my life all over again.
Watching what's happening.
Oh, it's a horror. I mean, this is really what's happening now. It's just a nightmare.
Have you been back to Puerto Rico?
Oh, sure. And I go back when I can. And the last time was after the hurricane. In fact, the hurricane hit my town, my place of birth, first. It landed there in Humacao, and it just decimated this tiny little town. It just decimated it.
So what was your thoughts about now being in the Bronx, in a tenement? Your mother had been a seamstress, I guess, in Puerto Rico, now worked in a factory.
Which was very common. It was a skill that many women had in Puerto Rico. And my mother was a wonderful seamstress, and her specialty was embroidery. She was just brilliant at it. And she made me all my clothing and all my costumes till I was 17.
So you're now in New York.
It's a long life. It's hard to
Not
it's hard to
speaking.
figure, what the hell should I ask this woman?
No. Oh no, I have a lot to ask you, but I want to set the stage because here's a non-speaking 5-year-old coming to the heart of New York City.
I mean, it's just, when you say that, I immediately think of these Mexican children and Honduran children right now. It's so horrific.
Not speaking the language.
No, not a word. Except, here's something charming. This is charming. My mother took me to preschool in Puerto Rico, in San Juan, in fact. And we learned a little song that the teacher taught us, which was this, and this is how it sounded. Good morning to you. Good morning to you. Good morning, the teacher. Good morning to you.
So you could say that.
I can say that, yes.
Could you say
all
goodbye?
I could say. No, that's all I could say.
And did you learn English by watching?
I didn't even know it was English. I just thought it was I knew it was something I learned, but I didn't know what it was.
And did you learn by watching television, by just being part of a...
No television then. I mean, there was, but it was just really rudimentary. God, I'm that old.
Well, no.
I'm 87. I'm 87. Isn't that amazing?
See, in the Me Too age...
I keep telling you things you don't ask me.
Well, I was going to say you were born the same year the Empire State Building was built.
Really?
You were born the same year as let's see, the unemployment rate was 17%.
Oh.
Post-Depression. Al Capone went to jail the year you were born. I was going to say all that without saying how old you were, because I'm in the Me Too generation.
Oh.
And I don't want to.
I think it's great that I'm still here, and not only here, but functioning. Despite the altitude.
So you're in New York, your mother's working, you're going to school, and by 7, you're already singing, dancing, learning how to be an actress.
Yes, my mother found out that I had, according to a girlfriend of hers who was a Spanish dancer, that I had talent, and I was taken to a dancing teacher, and that really is what started it. So I've been performing since I was 5.
But there are thousands of young girls in your situation. Who did you find that recognized this 6, 7, 8-year-old girl could perform, was theatrical, had whatever it takes in her DNA to be exciting?
Well, there was certainly no one for me to look up to because I didn't know anything or anybody. But it was Irene Lopez who did say to my mother, she saw me bopping around the apartment, and she said, I think Rosita might have talent. Do you mind if I take her to a dancing teacher? And my mom said, no. And that is literally what started it. Paco Cancino, who was Rita Hayworth's uncle, that was the big deal. And she was Margarita Cancino.
So is that where you got the name Rita?
Actually, no, that came way, way, way later. But that was MGM Studios saying, Rosita Moreno. He says, that's so Italian.
Marino.
So we got to change it.
Marino's your stepfather.
Yeah.
So, but didn't you pick Rita because of Rita Hayworth?
I know that's lore.
I read that in your book.
Yeah.
Or is that just?
Did I say that?
I don't know.
I don't
Somebody
either.
said it.
I don't remember it.
So that's just a
Very likely because Paco, that was his niece and all that kind of stuff. So it was probably right. But no one could pronounce Alvario. So I did take, Alvario is my, Rosa Dolores Alvario is my name. And no one could pronounce it, Alvarayo, Alvario. So when my stepfather came along, he was the 4th one. And his
Mother
name was,
married 4 times?
Yes, she did. But she was very, very, she was a good girl. You didn't sleep with guys.
Oh, she had to be married.
Yeah, you had to be married to do that.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
I approve.
Why is it? Yeah? What's
What?
wrong with you?
Because I have 9 grandchildren. I'll instruct them. So all right, so you have this dancing teacher. There must have been a lot of people that had dancing teachers. How did you go from having a dancing teacher to being in a movie, say? You've done 140 different characters, so we're not going to go through 140.
Oh, please no.
But there are some that are interesting. For instance, at 13, I don't know how a 13-year-old gets to be in a movie with Eli Wallach called
No. You know what?
Skydrift. You're 13 years
No,
old.
that was a play. That
Right,
was
closed
a
in
play.
4 days,
It was a
right?
Broadway play, and it closed 4 days later. Eli, nobody knew who he was at the time either.
How did you get into a play?
I auditioned, like most people do. I auditioned for the part of a little Italian girl. It was kind of an interesting play because it had to do with 4 young men who died in the war, World War II, and come back for one last time with their family. Nobody can see them but the mother or the father, that kind of thing. And, I got to tell you this. This is going to be the longest interview you ever saw in your life.
No, there's a clock up there that's got
Okay. Okay, well, but I have to tell you this because it's delicious. In my scene, and each act was a scene, the older brother, who's like 20, comes back to say goodbye to his Italian mother, and we're all having dinner. And we think that something's wrong with her because she's talking to the air, it would seem. And I noticed, this is opening night, I noticed that the audience was restless, even at this young age. I was then, 13, passing for 11. And I noticed that the audience is coughing and restless. And I honestly thought, I have to do something to help the scene. I have to help our leading lady, Lily Valente, a great character actress. So I take my spaghetti. I can't believe I did this. I take the spaghetti and just suck it up to amuse the audience, to distract them from their boredom, thinking that I'm doing something noble.
How did Eli Wallach like that?
And Eli wasn't in this scene. He was the Jewish boy.
Oh.
This is the Italian family. Anyway, to make it as short as I can, that act is over, and I think I've saved the day, and I'm walking into the wings, the curtains down, and Lily Valente takes me by my scrawny little neck. And she says I have to stand up because she was regal. She was a beautiful woman. And she says, if you ever dare to do such a thing again, I will hear about it, and I will find you, and I will kill you. That's my experience with theater. My first experience with theater. I didn't understand it. I thought I had helped her.
Did you stop scene stealing from then on?
I didn't even know it was scene stealing. I just thought it was helping.
It probably was, seeing the show closed in 4 days.
Oh, yeah.
Couldn't.
I mean, they were coughing and restless for a reason, right?
So
That was not pleasant.
did you move to California in this
I
period?
got a contract. Yes, I was 16 when I came to California, and a talent scout had seen me in a musical. What do they call those? When children do their you know what they call those. Oh, see, this is the altitude. This is so boring. Anyway, a talent scout saw me performing my Spanish dances in oh God, what's the name? John? Recital, thank you. And actually, this happens to me all the time. It just gets worse here. I am 87, right? I'm not 87 for nothing. Anyway, he saw me and I was signed to a contract at MGM Studios, which was the studio of my dreams. I mean, that's a studio.
7-year deal.
A 7-year deal. I mean, this was the studio that made The Wizard of Oz.
What happened the first time you saw all those stars?
I damn near wet my knickers. I mean, they were like real people. Clark Gable walks in, Elizabeth Taylor. Elizabeth Taylor was my icon because there was nobody like me in movies then. I mean, there was nobody. So I made her my role model. And she walked in and I just about passed out.
Did she talk to you?
Of course not.
Did any of them talk to you?
I was just a Puerto Rican person. Nobody talked to me. Nobody cared, nobody gave a shit, and that's the truth.
Did you have a Puerto Rican accent by this time or by this time?
Oh, no. I learned very early in life that language was very, very important. I just learned it because I learned it. I had to learn it. And I knew that language is important, which is why I think I speak a rather nice English.
You do. There's no Bronx. There's no Puerto Rican. There's just...
There's no Bronx.
No, you're like a newscaster.
I'm an American girl.
So Louis B. Mayer taps you for a 7-year deal.
Right.
So you're in Hollywood?
And I'm in Hollywood. I mean, it
With
was
your mother?
just a dream come true. With my mother, yes.
Not Mommy Dearest. Your mother...
Oh, no. No, my mom was a lovely...
You were a team.
...lady. We were a team. And she was as thrilled as I was.
Where'd you live?
In Culver City, in a little cottage that we rented. Literally a little cottage. And I had to learn to drive, which was terrible because I was bad at it. You know, such a New Yorker. And my very first day after I got my license, I had an accident. I crunched into somebody. It was just horrifying.
And did you use your new stage name or your old name?
I didn't have it yet.
Oh.
You know, but that was when Billy Grady, the casting guy at MGM, told me that I really needed a new name because it's too Italian.
Did they sign you for the 7-year deal while you were still in New York?
In New York.
So did they give you a train ticket? How did you get out there?
They did. In fact, I took a train. At the time, there were some terrible airplane accidents, And I felt so privileged because the studio was protecting me. They didn't want me to fly to California. They wanted me to take
They probably didn't want to pay for the ticket.
You're right. You're so
would be
right.
my guess. They pay for your mother?
Yes. Yeah, well, I was underage. I was still 17.
So the two of you pack up again
Yeah.
and head to California.
And head to California. It was thrilling.
And what did you do on the first day?
The very first day I went to MGM, well, I got the indoctrination. I was taken around. I honestly don't remember who took me around.
So it was like going to college in a way. They treated you like
Exactly.
a freshman.
Exactly. And this is where we do this, and this is where we do that. And these are the sound stages where we actually do the filming. Oh, I know. By the time I got to LA, I had been assigned a movie already, and it was called The Toast of New Orleans, with a very, very successful tenor of the time named Mario Lanza. And he was a big star at the time. And I was just over the moon that I was going to be in a movie with Mario Lanza. And so I had been assigned that already.
And how were you? How was he? How did the movie do?
He ate a lot. It's a typical tenor.
But was it
A lot of pizzas. He used to invite me into his dressing room, and he'd have a bottle of wine like this, a Jeroboam of wine, red wine, and pizzas. And of course, he blew up like a balloon, and the studio was going crazy with him. I had an acting teacher there named Lillian Sidney, George Sidney, the director's wife, and she did the acting lessons for everybody. She was the acting teacher. She was simply horrible. She had no talent whatsoever. I mean, these are the things that you really want to know. I mean, who cares about Clark Gable? That's fun. But she brought me in, and she said, we'll go over your part. And she's sitting with her back to a big bay window, which is in her first floor office, where there's a couch and stuff, and it seemed very luxurious. And I'm sitting this way looking, toward the window. No, she's looking toward the window, sorry. And every time I'd start to read the scene, she'd give me some kind of direction, and then she'd suddenly say, well, okay, in this one, you're feeling a little sad, and I want you to... And she did this constantly. I never really got a lesson. I never got a complete lesson. She was always waving to somebody in back of me, because that's who Lillian Sidney was. She was just married to this very successful director, and she got the gig.
Did that help you with the...
No, she didn't help me at all. I felt terrible.
Well, except for the opening scene of Singing in the Rain.
Well, that was a later picture.
Yeah, but you're walking in doing all that.
Oh, that's right. I'm playing. You've got to see Singing in the Rain. Again, if you haven't seen it. I had a tiny part, but I played a non-Hispanic character, thanks to Gene Kelly.
Well, and
Because Gene Kelly was a very progressive guy, as you probably know.
And that scene with you walking in,
Yes.
what
a fun scene.
waving to everybody.
The scene of a premiere in the 30s.
But before you did that, when you first came out, like today, Orange is the New Black, you did a women in prison film.
That's right. So Young, So Bad.
Yes, which you...
You have
you were
to say that. So young, so bad. My agent could never remember the name of the title of that thing. He'd say, yeah, she's in So Good, So Young.
Did you change agents?
And you know what his name was? Bullets Durgam.
That was your agent?
That was my agent.
Is that the only person you could get?
You know what he looked like? The Mike Myers character.
Oh, yeah.
He looked just like that because he had a bullet kind of head. He was very short. He wore elevator shoes. I mean, he was really almost tipping over constantly because those shoes were so high.
Well, that's the required look of an agent.
At the time, anyway.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so you did that movie, and then you did, at 23 years old, you did Singing in the Rain. Mm-hmm. And at that moment in time, you know Hollywood. You're part of the... And you meet Marlon Brando. That's the...
When I was 23, I think.
And he had done On the Waterfront.
He'd done On the Waterfront, and it was a huge success. He'd also done The Men. That was his first film about a paraplegic. And I wanted to see him in action. And at that point, I was under contract to 20th Century Fox. So I could visit any set I wanted to, and I
Did
visited
you
the Brando set.
finish your 7 years at MGM and then do Fox?
I did not finish, but I was dropped.
Dropped? Or
Yeah, show business is my life.
was that upsetting?
It broke my heart. Oh, broke my heart.
Why did they drop?
It was like Daddy. It was like Daddy said, "I don't love you anymore."
Did they know you were going to get a Tony, an Oscar?
Of course not. Obviously not.
My God.
No, nothing like. They didn't know what to do with the Latina girl. They didn't know what to do with me, so they gave me only parts like an Esther Williams movie called Pagan Love Song, a musical, where I played an island girl, a Hawaiian girl. I was always getting, my makeup kit for most movies in those days was a shoebox with no shoes, earrings, and dark makeup. That was it.
Even in The King and I, you didn't play Hispanic, but you played...
I played a native person, an
Right.
indigent person, who always had to have an accent.
Were you getting aggravated by this?
I was getting depressed. I was very, very sad. Here's the worst part of that time of my life, and it lasted a very long time, that I would get very anxious when I couldn't get a job. This is after the contract with MGM. And when I did get a job, I'd get a script, and I'd say, oh, thank God, okay, my life is saved once more. And it would be a native girl of some kind, an Egyptian girl or an American Indian. I played a bunch of American Indian girls. And that's what made me very sad and very depressed. And I was not a kid anyway who had a lot of self-confidence to begin with. So that really didn't help my frame of mind, which is what eventually led me to psychotherapy. Best thing
Before you hit psychotherapy,
Yeah.
you hit West Side Story, which again was a Hispanic...
No, West Side Story was during therapy. And and after West Side Story, I tried to end my life.
But that was because of
Marlon.
he wasn't nice to you? How long were you...
No.
Were you...
8 years.
8 years with Marlon Brando?
On and off, 8 years, yeah.
There's a memoir just in that. I mean...
Yeah, no, it was
He's an-
about 8 years. And we had a very tempestuous relationship, and a lot
He
of
had a lot of children.
acting out.
Didn't he have a lot of children?
No, not a lot, but he had some.
I thought he had 15. I thought he had 15 children.
Oh, no, where'd you get that idea?
Some research I read.
You read something.
Something. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm so disappointed. So, during Marlon Brando, West Side Story,
Yeah,
which you won the Oscar for,
that's right, and the Golden Globe.
and the Golden Globe. And you became a household name. And how
Well,
did
some
you...
households.
No, you were a household name. So, what was it like accepting the award at the Oscars?
I probably made one of the shortest and at the time most famous acceptance speeches because it literally lasted something like less than a minute. I remember when my name was called, Rock Hudson called my name. And I remember as I'm walking down, and the movie just cleaned up. The movie in every respect cleaned up for the Oscars. And mine was one of the last names called for that movie that evening. And so I had to wait a long time. George had already, Shakira's won his award. Everybody had already won their awards, practically. And I remember thinking, don't run. Don't run to the stage. It's not dignified.
Who was your competition?
Judy Garland was the big one in Judgment at Nuremberg. That was a big, I thought she was going to win. I flew in from Manila where I was doing a crappy World War II movie playing Sisa, yet another native girl. And I just flew in. I thought, man, if there's even this much of a chance, I'm going to be there. And I walked slowly, and I said, stop applauding, don't run, it's not dignified. Because I'd seen stars do that, just running in case they stopped applauding. And I went up to the stage, and I made a memorable acceptance speech. I held the Oscar, and I said, I don't believe it. Oh, good Lord. I leave you with that.
I wish more people would do that.
I've been trying to make up for it since, by the way. I've gotten several awards, and let me tell you, I really couldn't believe it. I mean, it's obviously, everybody thought, well, she's really sincere. I didn't take out ads. They may have, I don't even know, because I was in Manila doing this horrible movie. So they probably took out ads for all I know, but I just didn't believe it happened to me, not this Puerto Rican. And I run into the wings and I start to cry. And Joan Crawford, see, I can tell you more than you need to know, but it's so much fun.
No, I want to hear this.
You do.
We made at Paramount a bad movie called Mommy Dearest.
Oh,
really.
Jesus.
Oh,
Oh, my God.
wire hangers.
Oh, God.
As I remember.
Faye Dunaway.
Yes.
Not the easiest person in the world either, right?
It was not a great experience, the whole thing.
So, anyway, I love this. So, I run into the wings in tears. Joan Crawford, was the hostess of the evening. What I didn't know is that she tippled quite a bit. And her husband at the time was Mr. Pepsi Cola, remember?
Right.
What was his name?
I don't
Anyway,
remember.
Mr. Pepsi Cola. And she had a Pepsi cooler in her dressing room. But she also had a big bottle of vodka that she mixed with the Pepsi. So when I ran into the wings, she was looped already. And and there was a photographer there wanting to take a picture. And she grabbed me and she said, oh, there, and crushed my face into her manly chest, because she was built like a linebacker. And the photographer said, can we see her face? And we'd love to see her face. She said, oh, but she's very upset. She's so upset. And I'm saying, no, I'm not upset. I'm not upset. And she wouldn't let me go because the photographer was there. And they literally had to wrest me away from her grip so they could take me to the room, where the green room, was it the green room? Where all the people were there to take pictures of the winners. But
How was it working with Jerome Robbins, by the way, on that?
It was hard.
He was tough?
Jerry, I'm sure you've heard.
Well.
He had a reputation. Jerry Robbins was unquestionably a genius. Jerry Robbins was the choreographer and co-director of the film, and he actually directed and choreographed the play. And this was based on an Arthur Lawrence play, which was suggested, a lot of people don't know this, by Montgomery Clift, who said to Jerry Robbins at a party, you should do a musical of Romeo and Juliet. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Anyway, Jerry was a very sadistic person. He had serious emotional problems. I think he was a self-loathing person. And he picked, like all bullies, he picked on very little people. He was famous for this. Just to give you an impression of what he was like, these are famous stories about him. I'll tell you just one. He had rehearsed the kids, the boys, I think it was the Jets, to death during the play before it opened. And I mean, he just made you do it over and over and over. 15 times, 20 times, 30 times was not too much. I mean, he just really nearly killed these damn kids. And one day he really went overboard. And he had them doing knee turns. That's where you literally do pirouettes on your knees, okay? And you wear, for that, because you're boys too, you wear knee pads. But even so, it's killingly difficult. And after he went home that day, these kids took off their knee pads, put them in front of the door of his office in the theater, and burned them.
Wow. So when you did America in West Side Story,
Yeah.
and there were questions that you had about
Oh, yes.
ethnic
The lyrics.
and the slurs about Puerto Rico and things like that,
Yeah.
you forced the change.
I don't know that I did, but this is something nobody knows till very recently. I almost quit the movie because it occurred to me after I got the role, which I desperately wanted, for every good reason, I suddenly realized, oh my God, the verse to America goes like this: Puerto Rico, you ugly island, island of tropic diseases. That was in the play. And it was in the play for years and years and years, that way. And I suddenly realized, I can't sing that. I can't do this. And you have to understand that I was a person who really was very reticent about my values even at the time. And I was this close to calling my agent and giving him a heart attack and saying, you know what? I can't do this. I can't do this to my people. I can't do this. It's awful. And at just that time, Stephen Sondheim wrote a new lyric. My heart's devotion, let it sink back in the ocean. And that's how I came to stay.
That number in the movie, choreographed by Jerome Robbins, as horrible as he may have been to people.
Oh, no, he was brilliant.
Is unbelievable in America
And
with
funny.
a new lyric. And
I mean,
you are unbelievable in that, which is why you won the Academy Award. But this is interesting to me. You're at the height, publicly. You win the Academy Award. You have a
and the Golden Globe.
The gold, excuse me. Yeah, the Golden Globe.
Because most people forget that, yeah.
The Golden Globe is another issue. The Academy Award is the real thing.
Well, that was, especially then, that was such bullshit, yeah.
If you go to enough cocktail parties, sometimes you can win the Golden Globe.
Yeah, I know, it's disgusting. It was disgusting.
But not the Academy Award.
Yeah.
But at this height, you're having a difficult relationship with a man, like Marlon Brando. You're going through analysis, and you kind of go into self-exile for 7 years.
Yeah.
From what I understand, because you were tired of only being offered roles with accents and
Very dark makeup.
right.
I mean, if I was dark, that would be fine, but I wasn't, and it
Even in
always...
King and I, you were objecting to the dark makeup.
No, not there I wasn't, because that was the coloring of those young women.
Okay.
But not,
So
no,
why are you-
only in West Side Story, because it should have been makeup that really suited my skin. All Puerto Ricans are this. They are Taino Indian, which is the indigent. They are French. They are Spaniards, who are also, by the way, very often very fair. They are Dutch. That's the Puerto Rican makeup. And you'll see it in the names, by the way. Sometimes you'll need Senora Felisa Gautier. Gautier is a French name. She was our mayor for years and years and years in Puerto Rico. So it just really bothered me. And I remember the makeup man, when I objected to that makeup, it was so dark that sometimes you could see my color underneath. And I said, I don't know why I have to wear this. I am Puerto Rican. And he said, what are you, racist?
So why go to London? Why go to exile? Why not take advantage of the Academy Award? Is it the relationship you're having?
Okay, I'll tell you a heartbreaking story about that. Why indeed? What I did was, why am I sitting on something? Oh my God. It was heartbreaking because I would say to my agent, please submit me for other roles that have nothing to do necessarily with being Hispanic, or if they're Hispanic, at least with dignity, okay? Because I was always talking like this, you know? And here's what was heartbreaking. They wouldn't even see me. The producers, the directors, the writers, they wouldn't even see me. And, you know, I'd see a script. Sometimes I borrow one from my agency, and I'd say, I think I could do this. Submit me. And, you know, I found out later, reluctantly did so because they knew what would happen. No, she's too Hispanic.
Meanwhile, Natalie Wood, who played Maria, goes on.
We won't even go into that. Yes, there's that. And
So you decided to go to London.
so I decided to do anything but films for almost 7 years. I did a lot of summer theater lots of it, which was wonderful because in theater, you don't have to. I played an Irish woman in Miracle Worker. I played all kinds of people in the theater. I could do it in theater. In fact, later on in life, I played, I also played Maria Callas, but this is way later in Massachusetts.
You did something else when you came back, which was extraordinary, for which you won an Emmy, which is you committed yourself to education, and you were the principal exciting part of the Electric Company on PBS for 7 years, I think.
Yeah.
Which is an amazing accomplishment when you think.
And it was hard to accept that. It was hard to accept the offer because everybody in my profession whom I knew who were friends said, don't do a children's show. Why? Because of the Pinky Lee syndrome. You remember Pinky Lee?
I do.
He was my friend said, you will never play an adult again in television or anything else. You'll get really stuck with that. And I really thought about it very, very, very seriously. And I had a little girl, Fernanda Luisa, and I thought, no, I think of this as a service to a community, a very big community. And I decided to do it, knowing that I might be really stuck in that for forever and ever. And it didn't happen.
Just the opposite. You have been on, I think for many young people, they know you from 9 to 5 and One Day at a Time, which you just did, Norman Lear.
Yeah.
You've gone from the old technologies to the new technologies without missing
It's
a beat.
an amazing life, really. But I have to tell you something about the Electric Company. Great show. Morgan Freeman. And don't make a sound now. Bill Cosby, who was wonderful in it then. He was wonderful in it. He brought a great deal to it. But I didn't even think of it. When I was offered Carnal Knowledge, which is a film that Jules Pfeiffer wrote. Brilliant film.
Mike Nichols directed. Jack Nicholson was the lead. Art Garfunkel, Candice Bergen was in it. And I was offered a scene at the end of the movie, which is that of a hooker, and a high-priced hooker. And it comes at a point in Jack Nicholson's character's life where he is so wasted. He's such a mess as a human being that he can't even, there's a young child here, but no, he's not going to know what this means, where he can't even get sexually aroused anymore because he's just objectified women all his life. He plays a terrible character, and he's brilliant. He should have gotten a nomination for this. But because of the subject matter, he didn't. And he has to then go to a hooker to talk him into sexual arousal. And I did this movie, and I didn't even think about it. And then I was on hiatus, and it was time to do the Electric Company again, and I went, oh my God. Oh my God. Different audience.
Yes. So I went to one of the producers, not Joan Gans Cooney. I just couldn't do it with a woman, because she was the one who was responsible for the children's television workshop. I went to this fellow, David, who was one of our producers, and I said, I have something to tell you, sit down. And I said, I just finished a film that's directed by Mike Nichols. Wow. And it stars Jack Nicholson, Candice Bergen, and Art Garfunkel. Oh my God, Rita. And I said, yeah. So, David, I play a hooker in it. There's just one scene at the end of the movie. And Jack Nicholson sees her, and I explained very briefly what his character is. And I said, and he comes to my apartment, and he pays me the money, and I talk him into an erection, and then I blow him.
Okay.
The blood. Of course, you don't see that, but the look on his face was priceless, because literally the blood left his head and his body and settled into a pool at his ankles. He didn't know what to say. And he said, well, and then I started to laugh because it was just so incredible and he was so incredulous. And I said, I'm so sorry, I never even thought about, I'm an actress. I don't think of things like that. Anyway, it was okay.
And it didn't hurt Julia Roberts 20 years later, so.
There you go.
So it's all right. I don't know about my train of thought here, but let me ask you about the Me Too movement, only in that you lived through the entire era of male directors and producers, and you may have been the most attractive woman in Hollywood at that time. Did they drive you crazy? Were you constantly having to say, get away?
They were terrible. They were terrible to me. Buddy Adler, who took over from Daryl Zanuck, who used to run 20th Century Fox, stalked me. He was on the phone constantly. Luckily, I was living with 3 other girls. We rented a house in Hollywood. And when I understood what he was after, I was terrified, needless to say. I had them answer the phone all the time, and I was never there. I was working, I was doing something, I was in the shower, something. And he finally gave up when he called like this last time, he said, well, just tell her I tried. He had a mistress at the time, Dana Winter. Remember that beautiful young British actress? Beautiful brunette girl. But that was only the half of it. I went to a cocktail, okay. You read this because you read my book. I went to a cocktail party. I was fixed for a date by 20th Century Fox, and I was, I think, about 23, something like that. And I was a very young 23, I always was. Good Hispanic girl, And they said, why don't you go out with this guy? Who was Debbie Reynolds' husband?
Eddie Fisher?
No, the shoe guy. Carl. Do you remember?
Carl's good.
Harry Carl. And he was divorced from Debbie. So Harry Carl, the shoe king, that's what he was called. And he picked me up in a flashing yellow Cadillac convertible. It was obvious, and I borrowed a beautiful little cocktail dress from the costume department at Fox. And the moment I sat in that car, I knew that we had absolutely not even the weather in common. Okay? So we get to the place, and it's the home of a man named, this is, my 87 years catches up with me because I can't remember his name, but he was a very famous guy for having, John, you remember his name? I don't. Okay. Well, screw you, John. That's right. Anyway, he was very famous for a whiskey. He was a whiskey person, very rich, and we were in Bel Air, a very fancy house which had a dancing area with a band in it in the living room, that kind of thing. And I gave the butler took my throw, and he just abandoned me. He just literally walked out and went somewhere. I don't know where. I never did see him again that evening. That evening, very famous rich people were there. Sam, what is it, Cohen? The Columbia?
Columbia. Harry Cohen.
Harry Cohen. Comes over to me and he says, I'm quoting him, by the way. He says, "Well, you're a pretty cute little thing." I said, "Thank you." He says, "You know, I may have to fuck you."
Oh.
That's what he said. And I just kind of smiled, and I moved away from him. The host, the Mr. Whiskey person, comes over. He saw what happened, and he said, "Come on, let's dance." I was just astonished that they had a dance floor and a band, and he holds me very, very tightly. I mean, really, really tight. He was moving against me, and he started to get out of breath, start to breathe heavily, and I remember seeing beads of sweat on his upper lip. And he says to me, "You're a sexy little bitch, aren't you?" And I said, "Oh." And you know, again, I'm going, really, this is, his wife was sitting over there. She was sitting over there with Harry Cohn. And
It's kind of unbelievable.
no, it gets
Get
better.
worse?
It gets better.
Or worse?
Then he says, when I start to resist and try to push him away, he had a grip on me. He said, "Don't give me that shit, sweetheart." He said, "I'll bet you're hot in bed." No, he said, "I bet you're wild in bed." Those were his words. And that's when I pushed him away, ran into the bathroom, the ladies' room, and started to cry. And of course, the mascara's running. And I'm thinking, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? And my date wasn't available. So I thought, I'll walk home. I don't care. Which was Bel Air. I was in Culver City.
It's a long walk.
It's a
20
long
miles.
walk. Well, I thought I'll take off my shoes because I only had about $5 in my bag and a lipstick and a compact. And I ran out, left my throw behind, and there were some Mexican gentlemen cleaning and fixing the garden because it was a daytime party. And I went to them and spoke in Spanish, and I said, and I was all smeared and crying. I said, "I really need to get home. Can you help me?" And they didn't even ask a question. They just said, "Absolutely." And it was cool at the point. One of them put their jacket on me, and I got in a pickup truck, and they dropped me off at home, and those were the only gentlemen I ever saw that day.
Wow. Well, other than Harvey Weinstein, I never saw that in my career, and I never heard anybody say
Well,
that.
I wouldn't think you would.
But it's amazing. But I don't want to end on that, and I want to open it up for a few questions. But I do want to end with you on your commitment, political commitment, and your time with Martin Luther King. Because I think the audience would love to hear about his speech and where you were and why you were there.
Yeah. Oh, that was amazing. They were planning the March on Washington at the time. And Harry Belafonte, whom I knew, who was a friend, wanted to put together a contingent of film actors. I wanted to say Hollywood, but it was not about Hollywood. It was about actors. And he wanted to let Dr. King know that, there were people in that town who were very serious-minded people and responsible people. So he invited a number of us. The only ones I remember now are myself, Sammy Davis Jr., Diane Carroll, and Harry, of course. And we were invited to attend the speech that Martin Luther King was going to deliver at the Lincoln Monument. We sat up there with him. We were not down where the pool was. And it was an extraordinary afternoon. It was absolutely boiling hot. We were just dying from the heat. Nobody was prepared for it. Nobody had a hat on. And Martin Luther King gets up to speak, and he starts to do his speech. And sitting next to him this was my first, by the way, very political act. Sitting next to Martin Luther King is Mahalia Jackson, the gospel singer, great gospel singer. And he starts his speech, and the crowd down below is going crazy. People who walked, people who were wearing overalls from the farms who came in buses. It was just an extraordinary, I just get goosebumps every time I talk about this. I'm never over this. And she says to Martin, she says, Martin, because she'd heard this speech before. And she said, Martin, tell him about the dream. Martin, tell him about the dream. I heard this. And he discards the prepared speech and he goes into the I have a dream speech.
So that's
I was never the same after that. That really politicized me in a way I cannot even begin to describe to you. It was amazing.
So, I tried to save time for Q&A, but I couldn't stop.
But I talk a lot.
But I couldn't stop listening. Maybe we have time for 1 or 2 questions. Am I getting an okay on that?
We could do one very quick question, very quick response.
There's no such thing.
Okay, so, all right, right here,
Right there.
microphone, man in blue, nice jacket. Well, you're getting a mic right here.
My good. It's a privilege to talk to both of you. Such a powerful impact in making American culture better.
you.
So it's a privilege to see both of you on stage. Ms. Moreno, could you revisit what it was like to return to West Side Story after such a long time? What was it like to revisit that story again over 50
Oh, you're
years?
speaking of the remake?
Yes.
It hasn't, it just started filming.
Yeah, what was that conjure up for you to return to a story that was so pivotal?
Extraordinary.
Yeah.
I damn near peed my pants when I spoke to Steven, well, he's involved too, but Spielberg, and Tony Kushner is doing the script. And it's an extraordinary experience. I also get executive producer credit, which is sensational. And a part has been written for me by Tony Kushner. Instead of Doc, who had the candy store, remember that, where the kids hung out? Now it's Doc's drugstore, and it's run by his wife, Valentina.
Well,
I am thrilled beyond words.
I've never interviewed anybody in their 20s that are even as half as enthusiastic and together. And last night after we had this little thing, my wife said, she moves like a 40-year-old. How do you do that? Anyway, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.